wrote down on a piece of paper the idea for this band, nobody would do it. Now, if you wrote down, like, we're gonna have a band where we have 3 different singers, and each singer's gonna write his own songs, and then said, well, it's gonna be kind of a Southern-oriented rock and roll band, but it's not gonna be a Southern rock band, you know. And the guitar player and the bass player are gonna get married, and these guys are gonna be in their 40s, and these guys are gonna be in their 20s, and these guys are gonna be in their 30s. If you wrote all that down and tried to audition people for the gig, you wouldn't have a single person show up. There's no way, you know. It's the worst idea in the world on paper. But it worked, you know. It worked for a long time, and it'll still work, I think. I think it'll still work. I hope so, anyway.
I just couldn't imagine myself in another band. I probably wouldn't. This is my life here.
I kind of felt like I was supposed to be there, maybe.
The fact that everybody genuinely respects each other's contribution is what makes it work. It's what makes it work. We've never rehearsed, we've never made set lists, we've never sat down and mapped out what we're gonna do in the studio. The most we've ever planned was what we were gonna open with.
You wanna hear a song? All right, we going? All right. Choice about doing this or not doing it, because it's literally, truly all I can do. I'm not good for anything else. She was the wildest thing I had ever seen. The way she pointed that shotgun at me, the police hauled my ass off to jail. You know, I'm a lousy line cook, and I'm a lousy waiter, and I was a lousy student, so I never made it through college. But I've written songs a real long time, and I know how to do that. So I figured I better find a way to make this all work.
In '85, when we started playing together, at that time, the Stones had been a band for a little over 20 years. And we thought that was ancient. Now we've been playing together for as long as the Stones had been playing together when we started playing together. And I think it's ancient. There have been different bands, different lineups, a few years here and there of not even really seeing each other that much, but I don't know. I guess we do what we do. Fred and Ethel. Don't ask me which one's which.
I gotta pick up the cell phone blocks, and I'm up to my ass in dead and hockey, and I can't get the red stains off of my socks, can't get you off of my mind. And I lived with your mama for 11 years, through good times and bad times, fist fights and tears, but something comes over me when you come here. So won't you come over and sip on this beer?
You know, finally it was like, man, I can do this. I know all these songs. I've been playing them with Patterson. I'll just go up there and start playing. So I just went up and sat down, and I was like, man, you mind if I play with you guys since you're one short? And they were like, no, go ahead. So we played. It was like an acoustic show, and then the next day they said, well, you know, the spot is open if you want to come out and play with us.
When I joined the band, I pretty much knew the songs already. Now, as far as just bonding and being able to you know, do what I wanted to do and the way I wanted to do it up there. It took me a few shows. I was nervous, but it didn't take very long.
That's as much of a drum solo as anybody's ever gonna get.
I saved up, bought a day of studio time, and invited the people I wanted to play on it, and lured them there with pizza and free beer. It was after we had so much fun that I then hit them up to maybe play a show or two.
I would like to say, fuck Clear Channel, fuck Creed, fuck Ashley, fuck Brittany, fuck Jessica. This is where music is at.
We drove for 2 days. 2 days. For 2 days, drive-by trucking.
When we go see the truckers play, we wear diapers so we don't have to go to the bathroom.
What is it, you think? I mean, people really seem to need it. Need what they get from rock.
I know I needed it. I don't know what, I mean, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for, I wouldn't have made it through being a teenager.
Outset of my awareness of the truckers, Patterson always referred to, I mean, he talked about the band in a way that people talk about bands that they like.
Too much sex, too little Jesus.
He would frequently say, the band. And you have to remember that the band, the Drive-By Truckers, was playing to sometimes as many as 5 or 10 people when they were playing these shows. But gradually, they were winning people over. And the people that they were really winning over, a lot of times at first, were the other musicians.
When I started out playing with them, it was more of a stripped down sort of, and some acoustic based stuff. I knew he had great songs. I wasn't really sure where it was going, but yeah, and it eventually got a lot heavier.
I never saw Leonard Skinner, but I sure saw Molly Hatchet.
They were not waiting around for somebody to help them because they are true believers. They toured when nobody else would have continued to tour. They made records, they put them out, and suddenly it's like, how many copies do you guys sell at? About 5,000. It's like, 5,000 records out of a band is a lot of records.
This is definitely the time of my life I'm going to look back on and say, yeah, we did that. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I don't really care right now. This is the train I'm on, and I'm going to go till it stops.
I think that the truckers' lack of any cliche, it's not something that you get every day. They're comfortable enough in their own skin to not worry about trying to be anybody else, just to be the Drive-By Truckers.
I gotta get out of this. I gotta get out of here. I'm sorry. Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
If I had time for every time I heard my old man say one of these days, I wouldn't be like my old man today, talking about places that he'd been back in his younger days, that he was gonna go back to again one of these days. Dropped out of school, he was just 16. Fell right into a tire plant. Building the very things that make the asphalt sing. But Alabama, far behind you. I remember him saying that Chicago was a hell right here on earth. 25 years later, I was saying the same thing about Memphis.
When I see the Truckers, I can't for days get the songs out of my head. Like they're stuck, and they just play in loops over and over again. Part of it is I think the volume etches them into my head, but also it's the power of the songs.
Watch the country boys sing away. Steam rises off the man's insides on the sidewalk. Tends to change the way he thinks, the way he sees everything. He goes back to where he came from.
Great stories always have universal quality. Great fiction, great painting, taps into some whatever universal quality that we can identify with, but also helps us to see the world differently. And the Truckers do that.
One of these days when my face looks like a road map, I'm gonna find my way back home. And I'll go walking on the west side after dark. Leave my gun locked in there.
I'm the only one from the south side of the river. I'm the only river rat. That's what they used to call everybody from the Muscle Shoals side of the Tennessee.
One of these days, take one look at me and run.
Growing up is, it's tough. It's tough no matter who you are or where you come from. I've liked being an adult here a lot more than I liked growing up, but I don't think that had anything to do with geography or the people or the culture. It's just being 15 or 14 or however old you are and thinking there's something on the other side of the mountain over there. Not being able to appreciate what's on this side.
This is the original Muscle Shoals Sound Studio. When my dad started recording, the first person, I think they recorded Cher. She cut her first solo record here, and then the Stones came right after that and cut Brown Sugar and Wild Horses and 3 songs off of Sticky Fingers here.
After that, we started working with staple singers, cutting I'll Take You There and Respect Yourself.
Willie Nelson cut Phases and Stages here, and Bob Seger recorded a bunch of the Night Moves record here.
We recorded with Paul Simon, the Kodachrome, Loves Me Like a Rock, Still Crazy After All These Years. Later on, Bob Dylan came and recorded.
This was the family business.
But the bass is obviously the most important thing in all music. I mean, duh.
It's only recently that he found out that songs have words.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what they mean. We were just average-looking guys doing an unusual thing in a small town. All these people were coming to record with us, and they would get here and think, my goodness, why here? You can't even buy a beer here.
Why here?
Well, I guess probably Rick Hall, was the first, but I think that it's when Jerry Wexler, who I consider a great friend today, he still calls me about every 6 months, and I'll answer my phone and I'll hear this, hey Gene, what's rockin'? And and I'll know it's him. He came here and he got personally interested in the white boys over at the, at Rick's, and thought they sounded just so black, and I don't think anybody in New York really realized that they were just little white country boys.
See, I got married to Pat's mother when I was 18 and she was 16. And Pat was born when I was 20. And that was 1964.
As long as I can remember, he's had a pen and a paper, and he's been writing. It made him very odd. I don't think a lot of the kids at that time probably knew what to think of him.
He would come home from school and his schoolwork looked horrible. But I didn't, and I'd like when he would come home with sloppy schoolwork, I didn't go, all right, young man, you get in there, and I didn't do that. I was not a really good hands-on parent or anything. I was working all the time.
This is George A's house. I started staying with him on weekends when I was a little bitty boy, way before I can remember. And sit in his lap as he drove the tractor, cutting the grass or doing whatever work he did out here. So I kind of grew up out here. It's a very special place for me. George A was a bit of a night owl, and so was I, so we'd stay up late watching movies and stuff. And I remember watching King Kong out here one time. We sat up and watched it on old black and white TV, and oh goodness. And bringing her out here and seeing her with him is, of course, a extra special thrill. It's a blessing. And it occurred to me a few years ago that I generally only wrote about bad things, but I've never written about the good things, and that's a whole lot harder, and or it was for me anyway, because I didn't have any practice or experience doing that, and so I thought, it's like, God, why can't I write a song about George A?
George A was in the movies in 1941.
I knew the stories about, him being in World War II and going through Iwo Jima and all of that. I'd always heard the story from when I was a kid, but and it was hard for me to imagine the George A that I know going through that.
He was a family man, even in those days. But Uncle Sam decided he was needed anyway. In the South Pacific, over half a world away, he believed in God and country. Things was just that way, just that.
When I was staying out here on weekends, I was already writing songs for sure. 90% of the decisions I've made in my life have all been in an attempt to do something with the songs in my head.
When I was just a kid, I spent every weekend in the farm he grew up on, so I guess so did I. And we'd stay up watching movies on that black and white TV. Watch the sands of Iwo Jima starring John Wayne.
But I hoped that he would finish school and have a professional job where there'd be some kind of security. And Pat is an artistic person, and it wouldn't have worked being the pharmacist or the lawyer or whatever.
When everybody else, was really against him being in music, and go get a job, do something real, get a life. You know, my mother, boy, she was always his biggest backer. She let him practice in her basement, and they would practice till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And my mother would be laying upstairs in bed, just rocking and rolling. So yeah, he's been playing music as long as I can remember, and it's just been with various people. But I think he's got his dream team now.
Never saw John Wayne on the sands of Iwo Jima.
I love my home, you know, and I love my family, and that's why there was probably a good bit of bitterness in some of my songs when I would write about home. There was bitterness about the fact that I felt like I had to leave.
I've been a Truckers fan for about 3 years, and I feel like I've known those guys my whole life.
Yeah, welcome to the beautiful Alabama Theater. What a beautiful place. Me and Cooley been playing together for 20 years this past August, and we were going to celebrate then, and we just now getting back home to get to do it, because we wanted to do it at home. He and I played in a band for 6 years back in the 80s called Adam's House Cat, and you're not allowed to clap if you weren't at the Nick on a Monday night. But,
yeah, shut up, you didn't cheer back then.
Yeah.
The Nick is Birmingham's rock and roll landmark. Everybody that's ever played anywhere has played the Nick. And there it is. Isn't that a beauty? I have made an ass out of myself in that place.
But without any further ado, I want to dedicate this to those 8 people that were at the Nick. This is a golden oldie that we ain't never played before. So here we go. Me and my baby's on a runaway train, on a runaway train, on a runaway train.
The music history of this area, it's never been based on live music. It was based on recording, because it was session folks.
Runaway train, you and me, so damn glad it's a one-way ride.
They didn't quite get the logic of working up a bunch of original songs that nobody wants to hear and nobody's familiar with, and then going out and playing them for 5 people.
Train runs off the track.
Adam's House Cat was the only band in town when we started doing original music, and so it was not well received.
My baby's on a runaway train, on a runaway train, on a runaway train.
And the fact that it was badly received, of course, just egged me on and made me write really belligerent "fuck you" songs, which made us even worse, received even worse. So we'd write a song like Buttholeville, because that was an Adam's House Cat song originally, and we'd do Buttholeville, and they took it personal and were kind of pissed about it. And so, people would boo us or want to beat our ass after the show or whatever. And so it was not pretty.
Tired of living in Buttholeville. Tired of my job and my wife Lucille. Tired of my kids running and me. Tired of a 68 Bonneville.
They were playing in this band called Adam's House Cat, and I hated them. I just fucking hated them. I couldn't stand it, and the sound was awful in there, and it was really bad.
Then we went to a party afterwards, and I got to know the guys, and won't go into detail about how, but there was a lot of fun.
Best looking woman in Butthole.
Back then, when I met them, I started doing flyers, every now and then for them. I just thought what they were doing was, their songs were great, and I was madly in love with both of them, of course, It's just, they were just my closest friends, so.
We had just won this Musician Magazine Best Unsigned Band contest, and we did a little tour of the Southeast, played a bunch of shows, and pretty much got our ass kicked every night. Pretty much everywhere we went, it wasn't exactly going great, but we got all this local press. The paper was very supportive of us. There's a couple of writers at the paper that kind of got what we were trying to do, and gave us some really good coverage. And so we booked the show there, and we rent the theater and rent a sound system and bought ads and went the whole 9 yards. And we get there and we're sound checking, getting ready for our show. It's about 5 in the afternoon, and we hear a noise and go outside, and the sky's just black, and tornadoes came through and wiped out a section of the town and a truck stop and trailer park and all of that, and nobody came to the show that night.
For my band and me, the night all the shit went down. Homecoming concerts, night the tornadoes hit my hometown. You blame the weather, got sucked out.
I had to get up the next morning and go to the bank and give them the title of my car to take out a loan to pay off all the production and everything for the show. Then I go into work and working at a pharmacy there, and the front page of the Times Daily that day was all the coverage of the tornado, and the headline said it sounded like a train.
I swear it sounded like a train.
The Adams House Cat record we made. We made a record, and actually 15 years ago this weekend, Thanksgiving weekend of '90, we made a record, and God, it's been that long. And we didn't put that song on it. The record never came out. We finished it and then broke up. So.
What other bands were happening for you in between Adams House Cat and the Truckers?
God, that's a blurry period. Oh yeah, that I was in. I was in one for a little while. We did 2 gigs when I lived down in Auburn. It was called the Girl Scout and Nookies.
You just sort of went separate ways at that point?
No, we didn't get the memo that the band broke up, so we kept playing. I don't know. It's kind of like figured out years later. When bands break up, you're supposed to break up, but we somehow didn't. We just kind of kept on going without the rest of the band. So we were an acoustic duo for a while called Virgil Kane, after the song from the band, and. We put together a band down in Auburn called Horse Pussy for a short period of time, and it didn't really quite work. And then we had some kind of falling out or something for a while.
with each other for 20 years. I mean, that's, a lot of marriages don't last that long.
No, the two I had sure didn't, even combined before my current marriage that will last that long and much longer. But I don't know, Well, there's a good chemistry. It just works, I guess. It wasn't based on us getting along, because we didn't get along worth a shit until the last few years. Well, you'll want to take this next left right up here. And or actually, go straight and I'll take you the scenic route.
I grew up 2 hours north of Birmingham. Me and my daddy used to fish next to Wilson Dam.
We are in Florence, Alabama. We are walking up on the dam, Wilson Dam. It's a spectacular view of the dam. Everybody knows what this place is for.
What would that be?
Well, maybe a hot date, something like that.
Thank God for the TVA, where me and my daddy used to bow to the river and pray. Thank God for the TVA. When I was 15, me and my girl set out on the lock, watching the raccoons and the terrapins dance on the rock.
Yeah, it was pretty frustrating as a kid because I had lots of ideas and I was very stubborn and I wanted to play music and I asked lots of questions. And we are in the Bible Belt. In Church of Christ, where I went, music's not allowed. I didn't understand, well, why do I want to play so bad if you're not supposed to,
So I thank God for
The only part of growing up that I found difficult was the fact that I was so very different from everybody around me. Where I went to high school, it was all white, all red, all meaning like, their neck. and I don't mean that in a bad way because I was a redneck too. My family were farmers and they worked outside, and that's really all being a redneck is. It just means you work outside. It's not that bad an insult. But a lot of those kids were mean. And then there was the things I didn't know about, the fact that this part of the country, the particular town that we lived in was not very well off, and we didn't have, an enormous amount of things, but I never felt like I was doing without anything. I never, there was no problem. It's like, we're in a trailer, but hey, we're in a trailer, it's great. It's not raining on my head,
My granddaddy told me when he was just 7 years old, his daddy lost work and they didn't have a road not near enough to eat for 9 boys and 3 girls. They all lived in a tent, bunch of sharecroppers versus the world.
The TVA was this kind of grand experiment by the New Deal to both tame the water and to bring electricity to the rural area, which was the Tennessee Valley. And it did deliver on becoming a really important source of cheap electrical power to rural Southerners and kind of, brought them in some ways into the modern world, brought electricity, brought radio.
So I thank God for the TVA.
But it became an oppressive force. 20th century and starts selling resort property, and it becomes this force of oppression. I had a graduate student write a thesis about the TVA and about that. It took him 2 years to write that, and there's Cooley in 3 minutes doing a way better job describing this process.
They took all these people that had lived down, where that lake is now. I mean, they were hillbilly, uneducated, had no resources or wherewith to live in a town, and they kind of did what they usually do, kind of an eminent domain type thing with a lot of promises.
And cars never came to town, and the roads never got built, and the price of all their power kept on going straight uphill, and the banks around Holland sold for lakefront property, with doctors, lawyers, and musicians teach the kids water ski.
Pretty much all ended up living in housing projects in town because there weren't really jobs for them. They weren't qualified for any jobs they had. That particular guy ended up just killing himself.
There's no note or letter found when he died, just a rope around his neck and a kitchen table turned on its side.
And you travel all over the country, and when you leave one city and go to another, in between, you've got 600 miles of trailers, cars on blocks, crystal meth in bathtubs, guys in wife-beater t-shirts who are either in jail for shooting their wife or are going to tonight. It's not the South. It's America.
Man, I don't know. I think I've been here too long. I think I've been here way too long, man.
On the road, the back of the van, Cooley and Jason and Brad, and it's King Brad that day. But that's the van we traveled 72,000 miles in that year. And we slept on the floor. We slept in people's couches. We slept in, all six of us in a hotel room. I mean, one night in Salt Lake City, I stepped on Patterson's dick trying to go answer the phone.
I hated it when that happened.
I know, you bitched for days.
It hurt for days.
And we never had an accident, even with any of us driving. None of us were fit to drive. None of us are fit to drive now.
Well, that night, I mean, if we survived the night going into Grand Teton Village.
Yeah, that was the worst.
With the ice.
Cooley's white knuckling it. He's like, with a stuttering voice, he says, have any of y'all thought about what you want to be remembered as?
I think keeping in mind how you want to be remembered keeps you alive a little bit longer, because you also alternate with how you'll actually be remembered, and then you decide you don't want to be remembered just yet. You want to be forgotten by a few more people before you're remembered again.
There's one with a southern flair. Memories of snake handling. Airman in Babylon. The Last Temptation of Saint Junior. Serpentine Buddha. The Wrath Buns. I've tasted and I know the Lord is good.
The problem is, we don't play enough golf.
Yeah. Golf or die.
You play golf
or die.
You play more golf.
Like Byron says, you come for the golf, you stay for the cancer.
Stay for the cancer.
North Alabama.
Mary Alice got cancer, just like everybody here. It seems everyone I know is getting cancer every year. And we can't afford no insurance. I've been 10 years unemployed, just didn't get no chemo. So my life was destroyed. Nothing ever changes. Cemetery gets more fun.
I think that this is a very political band. understand is the power of telling stories. The places they're from are totally left behind economically. This is the other side of America, where poverty is still the norm, where there are no jobs coming into these places, and people are kind of dealing with horrible circumstances and hurricanes. We live in a political moment where very few people talk about class. The Democratic Party's given up talking about class. The left has given up talking about class in favor of kind of identity politics. The truckers talk about class all the time.
Faulkner wrote about that little patch of Mississippi around Oxford. All his books were centered around characters and stories that came from that little area of north central Mississippi, and he was working from the assumption that everything you need to know about human experience can be found in that little area of the earth. Every story you want to tell, every aspect of human life that you want to examine can be found in that little area. In a sense, truckers have made that same assumption.
Wake up tired and wake up pissed. Wonder I ended up like this. I wonder why things happen like they do. But I don't wonder. I guess we have to try that again. One more time. 3, 2, 4. Wrote the song about a guitar player from Atlanta, Georgia. He's actually from Cabbagetown, Georgia. His name is Gregory Dean Smalley, and he played in a bunch of bands, and he wrote a bunch of songs, and he got a terrible disease, and he died. But the last year he was alive, he played over 100 shows in and around the Atlanta, Georgia area. And I live in Athens, Georgia, and I just moved to town, and I worked at a place called the Hi-Hat Music Club there in Athens, Georgia. And I had the honor and the privilege to be the sound guy at 8 of those shows, and I met Greg. And my life was changed forever. He was an unapologetic, belligerent little bastard. This song's for him. It's called The Living Bubba, and it's all about how life and what's worth living for. Wake up tired and wake up pissed. Wonder how I ended up like this. I wonder why things happen like they do. But I don't wonder long, 'cause I got a show to do.
He knew that his end was near. He knew that he had at best a few months left. And so he obviously wasn't trying to make it, or become a star. He just was trying to survive.
But I can't die now, 'cause I got another show.
stage and start playing, and he seemed less sick. When it was over, he was so exhausted, he had to be helped to the car. But while he was on stage, he had this purpose, and that really, moved me deeply and really changed my perspective about a lot of things.
Ain't got no political agenda. Ain't got no message for the youth of America, except wear rubber and be careful who you screw. And come see me next Friday, 'cause I've got another show. Some people stop living long before they die, but that job is to scrape on by. But I keep living just to bend that note into. And I can't die now, 'cause I got another show. Greg Smalley.
And he really took a shine to us and invited us to play in Atlanta and got us a slot at the Bubba Palooza Festival that he put on every year at the Star Bar. So that was like the big time to me. It's like, all right, I'm getting to play Atlanta, thanks to this guy who. And so I called him to thank him the day that we got offered the Bubba Palooza slot. I called him to thank him for hooking it up for us, and his wife answered and said that he was in the hospital and this was, probably it. Once it was written, I knew even then there was more to it than anything I'd ever done before. And I was pretty content if it never happened again to that extent, because I don't think you can make a song like that happen. I think it has to happen to you. I was lucky enough that I was the one with my antenna up high enough to get the signal.
We met him at the Bubba Palooza, and we had sat through like 15 rockabilly bands, and then the Drive-By Truckers played, and we were both very impressed. And Jill's like, "We gotta go back and talk to them." He's like, "You go talk to them. I can't."
Well, not like groupies either. It was because we wanted them to play the barn dance.
We were doing the barn dance at that point.
That's part of the reason we stayed at the Bubba Palooza.
Yeah, we were scouting bands to get them to come up and play the barn dance.
Right.
It was called the Capital City Barn Dance. It was a showcase for like Americana, alt country, whatever. It was sort of somewhere between Hee Haw and the Grand Ole Opry, but it was
with the Little Rascals thrown in.
Yeah, with the Little Rascals. They don't want a punk rock budget.
It was meant to be somehow. It was somehow related to what we were trying to do.
It's the same old shit.
It's always about the music. The music is the most important thing, but there's so much going on with it within a record, and it's cool to be able to have the opportunity to illustrate the songs. That's cool.
When we first hooked up, you looked me in the eye. You said, "Paul, we just ain't no good. You're heathens
There's a whole lot of trucker stories that we have that we can't tell. The code of the road.
He needs a kissy. Give him kisses. He needs a kiss on nose kiss. Give him a kissy.
We met Tuesday. We've been inseparable since.
Rodney is the king of forward momentum, no matter what. It's like if you're falling, make sure you fall forward so that you gain some ground.
I used to have me.
I take a pie, get that into rock and roll, then you can see that some big fat pie-eating motherfuckers getting down, rocking the fucking country.
Oh man, I love everything about the Truckers. Let's see. I like the variety of 3 songwriters and 3 guitar players. I think they come committed every night.
This is the band in 35 years that you would have wished you saw as a full lineup, live on stage, 3-hour shows. You would die to have that in 25, 30 years. Their music's that important, I think.
I haven't been eaten up with a band and every word they sang and wrote. I don't know.
It's like finding religion, I think, for some people.
Yeah, it is.
People have always connected to us, as a live act because we're having fun. And we can be singing the most painful song in the world, and we'll do it with a smile on our face, and everybody else relates. It's just finding redemption, I guess.
When I was a young boy, sniffed a lot of glue.
It's strange to me how that works, how we can sing so many songs about so much misery, and people can just sit out there and, scream for these songs that are like, sing that one about the depression, or sing that one about ruining your life and getting on medication and it not working, and I'm gonna have another beer, we're gonna have a good time.
No, the Lord is coming, the South will rise again.
The thing that probably has never come across as well on our records as the show is the fact that no matter how dark it may be, it's still a party. That's been, I guess, part of the history of music forever. People sing these sad songs about what affects them, but in the act of singing it, it's a joyful noise.
There's no explanation for what happens up there, and I think we're the only 5 who know that. Sometimes it's the only 2 hours, 3 hours, however long we're up there, that we don't feel like shit.
Throw me in the Carver County jailhouse. You could throw me off the Wilson Dam, but there ain't much difference in the man I wanna be and the man that I really
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Nice favorite.
You want to say hi to my boss, man?
Yeah.
Tell him it's Patters.
Hey, give him a pay raise. Give him a big fat pay raise.
All the frat boys latch on to the road goes on forever and the party never ends, but they don't see the inherent sadness of that's really behind it all, because it's like the road goes on forever and the party never ends.
Get it?
Do you see? I'm in hell.
The traveling gets old, it loses its romantic attraction. It's no longer an adventure. After a while, you just, you feel like you're going through the motions, and that's the worst part of any job, is, trying to find something else about it to be passionate about.
They've lost girlfriends, they've, basically been homeless at one time or another because they put everything into that band, and that's what it takes to get to be good and to realize and your dream or whatever.
Their personal relationships are dropping like flies, in no small part because they are continuing to tour and continuing to push this thing.
I'd come home and then have to go to my dishwashing job wherever I could find that would hire me for the 4 weeks until I leave again, just to try to save up enough money to get to the first town of the next tour. I mean, it was that bad. And finally it all kind of exploded in early 2001 when we had this huge battle and decided that, you know, it was like, well, are we gonna break up or what? So I was like, well, maybe we should just take a break.
I can remember talk about the Southern Rock Opera, talk about this thing, this concept album, and how it was going to go down.
I grew up in North Alabama in the early 1970s, back in the days when dinosaurs ruled the earth. I'm speaking, of course, of the three great Alabama icons, George Wallace, Bear Bryant, and Ronnie Van Zant.
You know, we'd finished mixing Southern Rock Opera and we'd shopped it a little bit and nobody was interested, no labels wanted it. It's like, we've come this far, you know, we spent 6 years in this dumb thing and it's really pretty fucking good, you know, it really is. It's, you know, we made it happen. We may not necessarily all be liking each other right now, but you know, we got work to do. You know, if we break up now, there's no saving face. We're just another, you know, a bunch of fucking losers that didn't follow through with what they said they were gonna do.
Bobby went out for a joyride with my best girl, left me at the party. It was almost June and the 3/4 of noon illuminated the rain-soaked streets like a candy wrapper. I guess that's why Bobby had his lights off, tear-assing through them back streets and dark country roads. Me and Bobby tear-assed so many times before.
Somewhere by the end of that ranting and cussing, it swerved into, fuck it, we're gonna do it ourselves. We'll find investors. We're gonna, I'm gonna book the goddamn tour myself. We're just gonna do the whole goddamn thing. We're just gonna see this thing through.
When the story was told the next day at the graduation ceremony, everyone said that when the paramedics got there, they could still hear Freebird playing on the stereo.
When our lives all turned around, basically. Southern Rock Opera first was discussed. We wrote an outline for what was going to be a screenplay about this kind of fictional band, but loosely based on all these like folklore stories we knew about Skinner. We got the idea that instead of writing a screenplay for a movie that we had no way of making, hell, I've got a band, let's write this rock opera. That's a good, ridiculous thing to do.
But growing up with it, I was proud of being a Southerner, but I was ashamed of that.
By the time I was old enough to remember anything, it was scars left to heal. It wasn't fire hoses and dogs. It's given us a lot to overcome.
startled me was the contrast between what had gone on in Birmingham in the mid-'60s and what had gone on in Muscle Shoals at the very same time. In Birmingham, you had the perfect example of how bad things can be when people are oppressed over something they have no means of changing, like their race. Muscle Shoals, on the other hand, was the antithesis of that. It was how good things could be when divergent cultures brought the best they had to offer to the table. And that, to me, was the essence of what was right and what was wrong about Alabama. Whence cometh the duality of the Southern thing.
To call the truckers Southern rock, I think, does them disservice. To say that they were thinking about Southern rock and kind of echoing it and playing around with it on the rock opera seems to make sense to me, because it doesn't limit the truckers because they keep moving on. And within that genre, right, nobody who's doing Southern rock has ever written like the truckers.
I'm not ashamed for anybody to call me a redneck. I am a redneck. This is where I'm from. But I'm part of this people here. I am part of it. I'm proud to be part of this people here. I'm ashamed of the ones who act badly. But I never heard of the duality, the Southern thing, until he wrote that song. Goodness gracious, this is over my head. This is complex shit.
What they're saying, which I think is important, is that I can love the South and still recognize its failures. I can love rock and roll and still recognize its failures.
Get out the way of the Southern things. Get out the way of the Southern things. Get out the way of the Southern.
That's what makes this band so interesting, that they're taking what rock and roll has always promised us. They've taken that promise and said, yeah, it's worthwhile, even though it's never going to come true.
Dead is dead, it ain't no different. Walking around if you ain't living. Living in fear's just another way. Die before your time.
Cooley had decided early on he wanted to write the Shut Up and Get on the Plane story, because that was a specific story, and a story that really resonated with him and his philosophy about life.
Time for everything, and the time's come for you. Shut your mouth and get your ass on the plane. Shut your mouth and get your ass on the plane.
How's the record going to end? It's going to end with a plane crash. And so I fixed me another drink and wrote Angels and Fuselage.
Looking out the window, the trees are getting closer, it seems. Thinking about you, darling. Adding up the cost of these dreams.
But yeah, I mean, the record came out on, we got them back from the press and played our first show from the manufacturing plant, and played our first show of that 2-year tour on September 12th, 2001.
And I'm scared shitless of what's coming next. And I'm scared shitless. These angels I see in the trees, they're waiting for me.
we'd all kind of decided we weren't, just kind of figured we weren't going to play, but somehow we ended up on the phone with each other in the middle of the afternoon. It's like, you know, Cooley my sister had brought over the CDs, so he had our 5,000 copies of Southern Rock Opera sitting in his living room, and he was going to have to drive them up to bring them to me anyway. Called the club. Well, we're going to be open. If y'all want to come play, we're here. You know, and if you don't, that's fine too. We understand. You know, I don't know if anyone's coming or not, but a lot of people might want to get out and drink. Maybe it might do them some good to have some rock. You know, so we drove up, played, and then toured for the next 2 years for that record.
Have stopped now. We all know we're coming now.
And it was really weird. We played New York on October 11th, and driving into the city, you know, for the first time after that. It was almost like paralyzing when it dawned on you that, shit, we're playing the song about this right here, right now, you know, and it was really spooky.
You wanna grow up to paint houses like me, a trailer in my yard till you're 23. You wanna feel old after 42 years, keep dropping the hammer and grinding again.
Coming into that was mind-boggling for me. There was a lot of humor, and there was a lot of drinking, and there were a lot of things that I had never seen before. And they were great. They were filthy and, you know, dirty and mean and miserable and wonderful.
Is it fair that a band that already has two of the best songwriters of pop music gets a third songwriter that's one of the best songwriters in pop music today? I mean, you know, how does that happen? It seems so unfair and so unlikely, but, you know, the only way you can explain it is that like attracts like.
Jason joining the way he did was the greatest thing ever. You know, I'd met him a year earlier, and you know, I thought he was the most amazing talent I'd ever met. And we were at a party, and everybody passed around the guitar, and we started playing together, and there was this immediate chemistry that was just pretty, overpowering.
No terror, Jesus, don't get it.
If it were up to me, the band would never exist in any other form. And I don't think it will. I don't think it will. I've heard, you know, pretty much everybody else say that too. It's just like, you know, this is the band that we've always wanted to have. It's very good for us to have that to fall back on sometimes. Sometimes it's the thing that, you know, gets you to sleep at night.
So darling, I'm taking you out, boy. Don't try to be lame. Don't let me catch you in Kingdale. Yeah, the Parkland will be mine. Don't call it too early.
still want the same things everybody wants. I still want, a family, and to be a good husband, good daddy, and all that. And that is important, that's the most important thing. And I try to compensate when I'm home from the road by being extra home from the road.
How do you like being a dad?
It's freaky. I like it. Well, what else am I going to do? I got all this DNA, and no, it's great. It freaks me out on a daily basis, but everything I've ever loved did.
The first time we played Bonnaroo, our road manager at the time met this girl and thought that she would, like talking to me or whatever. So we hung out all day, and since then, we've been apart. Got married 2.5 months later.
I could find another dream, one that keeps me warm and clean, but I ain't dreaming anymore. Girl, I'm waking up. So I'll take to what you're having. I'll take everything she's got to give.
And what was it like then when Shauna became part of the band?
It was good. It was it took some getting used to, I guess. Still taking some getting used to, but I still haven't quite figured out, what to do or how to handle being around somebody like that all the time, 24 hours a day. And there's not a lot of precedent for that. There aren't a lot of people you can go to and say, hey, how did you do that time when you had a job that you were always at with your wife and whatever? And that's difficult.
Is this goddamn.
Why do you think you're a drummer?
I'm just not capable of doing anything else. I'm not. I'm horrible at all jobs I've ever done. I definitely probably have my role in the band as being the calm-headed one, but if it needs to be, I can let loose every once in a while.
We had converged to make that record, and I think that's when it became undeniably apparent that there were some problems in the band. We'd known that Jason and Shauna had been already kind of drifting apart and having some issues and stuff, but we'd kind of been so busy just plowing ahead and doing what we were doing that everybody was just kind of pretending that wasn't happening.
Faces smashed against the floor.
Of course, y'all were going to be coming to film.
They said I'd rather be alone.
And it became real apparent real quick in there that it wasn't going to be a happy record to make.
Listen what we got going on here?
Yeah, and also when I record, I want pretty quiet and mostly just Brad. I'm very emotional, and I feel things more than I see them or hear them even sometimes. So lot of times just close my eyes and do it. And if it doesn't feel right, it just doesn't feel right. It's not perfect. So do you like that? What
I don't know yet.
Still think something should change here more. One of the things we truly do all have in common is each one of us are really, really stubborn, strong-willed people. When it kicks back into the chorus for the rest of the song. And finding that middle ground that we can all, you know, sometimes it comes real easy and real natural, and sometimes it's something that's very hard won. You want us to hit it again? Yeah. Easy B said, yeah.
I don't give a fuck what Easy B said.
He said he didn't give a fuck what you said.
Keep that or not?
Keep that, Easy B?
Yeah, band first. Yeah, that's the way we've all looked at it.
No.
And when you got in the van, that's what it's all about.
Anybody need a beer? Yeah. Well, fuck you.
It takes a lot to be able to work together and be able to harness all those personalities into something that's, you know, channeling it out. It's very tough for any band to do that. That's why a lot of bands fail, because it's really hard to get along with people.
You have to be gentle with each other sometimes, and sometimes you have to be brutal with each other. You know, you have to be really good at deciding when those times are. Because to get along and coexist with 5 people who are trying to pick up the same rock at the same time, sometimes you have to say, I'm the guy that's, you know, not picking up enough, or I'm the guy that's picking up too fast, or I'm the guy that's pushing in the wrong direction, you know, or rowing out of sync.
But at the end of the day, you know, I hope we can keep from killing each other one more year so that we can make another record. No one really does packaging like this anymore because no one even buys records anymore. Well, maybe if the records were packaged a little better, people would buy them. I mean, God, when I was a kid, buying records, it was as much about the album cover. You know, I didn't hear Led Zeppelin on the radio. I just thought the album covers looked really cool, and so I took it home to see what it sounded like. And, you know, it turned out it was Led Zeppelin.
I listen to their songs and I hear things that may not have occurred to them. They look at my pictures and they see things that may not have occurred to me. But, you know, I listen to their music and I see pictures.
You know, one would hope that that experience of the album, of the collection of songs, is not lost. And it's obviously an experience that this band, you know, cares a lot about and is trying to create. Were they born at the wrong time? You know, are they in the wrong era for the kind of art that they're making? You know, some artists are dislocated out of time and are making great art, but in an era for which there's not a ready found audience for it. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Emotional impact is what I'm always looking for in music that I love. And I think that that's what they have. I think that their music has emotional impact because it's real to them. You know, it is music that is of them. Cooley's, because his playing, his guitar playing and his voice are so unlike anyone else's. I think that there are people who just, it takes them a while to realize that what profound truths those songs of Cooley's contain.
If I could have one wish right now, I'd be about as half as tough as I pretend I am. And I wouldn't care how empty this old house feels.
He'd played it around me before. Maybe I hadn't really properly listened to it, but the first time I really remember hearing it, he was playing a solo show, which he never does, and it was I guess around last January, and he came to Athens right before Ava was born, and Rebecca and I went and saw him, and he played Space City that night, and it was just, I was like standing in the middle of 40 Watt with, tear running down my face.
Sometimes the words I used were as hard as my fist. She had the strength of a man and the heart of a child.
I wrote it after my grandmother died, just trying to put myself in my grandfather's shoes.
Space City's 1 hour.
But they had been together for, over 60 years, maybe almost 70. And I just couldn't imagine, what it would be like to find yourself alone at 80 for the first time in your life.
Somewhere beyond that big white light is where my heart is gone. And somewhere she's wondering what's taking me so long.
I guess that's going to lead to a story. I've got a story that goes with this. I could tell you too, but are we rolling? We're rolling. pour that wine. Let's roll. And there was a guy I used to play with named Chris Quillen, and he was supposed to be a drive-by trucker. But the day I wrote Bulldozers and Dirt, I wanted Chris to hear it. It just reminded me of something that I knew that it was something he would really love. So I called him, knowing he wouldn't be there, and I thought I'd just try to sing it on his voicemail. And he answered the phone, second ring, and before I said hi or anything, I sang the song on the phone a cappella to him in its entirety, the whole thing. And then we talked for 45 minutes and made all kinds of plans about this band we were going to form. And I already had the name. I had the name before the band. I was going to book the studio time, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm there. I'm there. And we were figuring out logistics of how to get him there and everything. And then he got killed, and of course wasn't there. We went to Florence for the funeral, and Cooley and I all had the same dream the night before the funeral. We all had this very specific dream where he said some very specific things to us. And I always felt like what our band sort of did was sort of tied to that dream. someone who's generally given to a lot of superstition or ghost stories or whatever, and yet it very specifically happened to me, and I remember it very vividly, more so than I ever remembered a dream, in which at one point in time during the dream, it was like he took a light and he shined the light down a path, and all I had to do was follow it.
New uniforms, the 3-piece suit, dry clean every week. It's bullshit if you ask me.
I kind of feel like we've ended an era with the band, and it's time to do some other things and move on and see how far we can push some things. Try to stick that antenna up there, see what happens.
Even if you still like to be on the road and you still like to play shows, which we do, I love it, but I have to as well.
Yeah, once again.
You can't have it like maybe your pinky toe in reality. If you think you want to be a musician or an artist, you're foolish to do that. But God bless the people like the drive-by truckers that are foolish enough.
30 years from now, Cooley and Hood should be the next Jagger and Richards. What's right and what happens ain't always how it works out.
What does it take? Cooley got it right, when he said rock and roll means well, but I can't help telling young boys lies. And part of the great thing about the truckers is they keep believing that lie, don't they? But that lie blows up. Are they gonna end up the cliche of the rock and roll band gets destroyed by the road? Maybe. But maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe they'll be able to find a way to make this work.
Once upon a time, my advice to you would have been to go out and find yourself a whore. But I guess I've grown up some, 'cause I don't give that kind of advice anymore. It's gonna be a world affair. It's gonna be a world affair.
I don't know if we'll ever be necessarily happy people. I hope so. That'd be great. But I do know that it had to be done, for survival purposes. It wasn't something we could continue doing anymore.
Yeah, the love is to feel pain. There ain't no way around it. The very nature of love is to grieve when it's over. The secret to a happy ending is knowing when to roll the credits. Better roll them now before something else goes wrong. No, it's a wonderful life if you can put aside the sadness and hang on to every ounce of beauty upon you. 'Cause one thing's for certain, if you feel anything at all.
Late one night, I ended up going back on the bus, and Cooley was sitting on there, and the two of us sat on the bus together for a while, and it's like, is this it? Is this the end? Or is it time? Is this gone as far as it's going to go?
So if what you got is working for you, or you think it stands a reasonable chance, if what seems broke might stand a possible chance of being fixed, nothing lasts forever. Still look at each other and smile before you remember how fucked up it's gotten, or maybe you still dream of a time less rotten. Remember, it ain't too late to take a deep breath and throw yourself into it with everything you've got. It's fucking great to be alive. It's fucking great to be alive. It's fucking great to be alive. It's fucking great to be alive.
miss the most, it's just playing those songs, I think, more than anything else, you know. Just playing Zip City and Heathens and Women Without Whiskey and, you know, playing those songs in front of people with that band. You know, I love all the people, and I'll miss them, but I can call them, you know. You can't call the songs.
Some things are meant to last longer than some things. You know, the 3 records we made together in the 5 years we spent playing together were great. Why cheapen it by continuing on, going through the motions when it's over, when it's moved on? You know, he's pushing in a different direction. He should go there.
Say your last goodbye. Make it short and sweet. There ain't no way for you to fly with her hand on your feet.
And then, you know, I know certainly in conversations with Patterson and Cooley the last couple of years, it's been, we got to find a way to
stop going on the road so much.
Yeah.
And that's not where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I think that had a huge, huge thing to do with the split.
Right.
More than probably anything else. You know, except maybe the 300-pound gorilla in the corner of mine and Shauna's relationship.
Let her go out if she wants to. If she don't go out, yours hell. Don't take sorry for an answer. Unless you really want what's left. 'Cause in a razor town, the only thing that matters.
There's a few songs of mine that I won't really talk about much at all. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more. Because you just got to be careful what you reveal. If a song doesn't say it, you haven't necessarily written the song right, you know. There's no misinterpreting.
Yeah.
The song's just as much theirs as it is yours after you get done right.
You learn as you go, you know. I think I need those guys and they need me out there.
It seems like when in doubt, strip it down to the very, very foundation, which is the songs. That's where this band began, and so it seemed like that's where to turn to rebuild this thing.
Guess I'll never grow a sideburn. It's a shame with all I got to go between. I hope somebody's calls take soon. It's getting hard to find a place where you can sing. Mama said a lot of things, and be thankful was the one she never minded to say it twice. Thanks to her, I can think clear enough to be thankful that she died before tonight. Baby, every bone in my body's gonna jump it like it's gonna come through my skin. They could get along without the rest of me, it wouldn't matter if they did. The skeletons ain't got nowhere to stick the money. Nobody makes bridges that size. And besides, you're a ghost of months before they notice that you ever had a hair right.
We'll see what happens. Patterson and Cooley been doing this for a long time. I got lucky, I got to just hop on, you know, catch a ride. But they've been doing it for a long time, and whenever they get tired of doing it, I'll understand, and I'll love them till I die.
Wake up tired and you wake up pissed. Wonder how I ended up like this. I wonder why things happen like they do. But I don't know, 'cause I got a show to do. deserving. I ain't no angel, but nobody's deserving. I can't dance on my own grave, thank you. But I can't die now, 'cause I got another show. Some people keep saying it can't last long, but I got my bands, got my song. Liquor, beer, and nicotine help me along. And I'm drunk and stubborn as they come. Chain smoking, guitar picking, till I'm gone, 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 gone. Ain't got no political agenda. Ain't got no message for the youth of America. Except wear rubber and be careful who you screw. And come see me next Friday, 'cause I got another show. Some people stop living long before they die. Work a dead-end job just to scrape on by. But I keep living just to bend that note into. And I can't die now, 'cause I got another show. Greater than small.